The brutal truth about power, wealth, and control. The system was built to break you. They taught you to be polite, to follow rules, to wait your turn, to dream, but not too much, to obey, and call it virtue. But something in you kept screaming. In classrooms, in offices, in bedrooms, in mirrors. You sensed it, a silent war between who you are and who you were allowed to be. Nietzsche didn't write for the comfortable. He wrote for those who could feel the invisible cage. He saw it. How systems use morality to tame power. How wealth can be a leash disguised as reward. How obedience is the real currency of control. This video won't comfort you. It will tear away your illusions, one by one. Because freedom isn't granted. It's taken. And the price is your former self. If you still have the courage, click play. Like this video. Subscribe. And activate the bell. We're not here to entertain. We're here to dismantle the lie. Part 1. You were shaped to serve, not to rule. You weren't born into freedom. You were born into a design. A silent architecture of expectations, roles, and invisible ceilings. From your earliest breath, hands reach to mold you, not into yourself, but into something useful. Useful to the system. Useful to those above. They gave it names to make it holy, family, school, duty. But what they built was a containment unit. A finely tuned machine to strip the wildness from your soul. Because a man with his own power can't be managed. And that's dangerous. So they taught you the script. Say the right things. Nod at the right time. Chase grades, money, status, and call it purpose. But they never taught you how to confront your own will. Because your will is untrainable. And they fear that more than chaos. Nietzsche called it ressentiment, the resentment of the weak disguised as morality. They couldn't be powerful, so they sanctified obedience. They couldn't conquer, so they glorified submission. They told you humility was strength, but only when directed downward. They told you pride was sin, unless it served their institutions. And you believed it. Because what choice did you have? By the time your mind could question, your identity was already a product. Sold to the highest bidder in the market of control. You weren't raised, you were manufactured. This is the brutal truth. The system doesn't want free men. It wants predictable ones. Obedient minds. Caged instincts. And it will reward you, not for becoming powerful, but for never realizing how powerful you already were. Now ask yourself, where did your fire go? When did survival become your only goal? And who benefits from your silence? Comment below if you felt it, that quiet rebellion in your chest. We're just getting started. Part 2, The Lie of Wealth, Golden Chains for the Obedient. They taught you that money is freedom. That if you just work hard enough, save smartly, invest wisely, you will one day be untouchable. You believed it. Because they made you feel the lack of security, of comfort, of status. They made you want the leash. Because it glittered. But wealth, in their world, is not liberation. It is permission. A license to consume, to display, to move within boundaries, not to break them. Because real freedom doesn't come from possession. It comes from detachment. And the system cannot tolerate a man who no longer needs. So they gave you a new god, success. Measured not by depth of spirit, but digits in a bank. They shame poverty, not because it's hard, but because it's unprofitable. They sold luxury as identity. And you started to confuse wealth with worth. Nietzsche saw it clearly. In every society, values are manufactured by the victors. Not to elevate others, but to protect their own position. The rich preach hard work, but rarely do it. The powerful exalt discipline, but only demand it of the powerless. It's not hypocrisy. It's strategy. What they fear most is not that you'll fail. It's that you'll opt out. That you'll see through the illusion and walk away. Because then, their wealth becomes meaningless. Their power unanchored. Their systems exposed. That's why they reward loyalty over brilliance. Conformity over courage. and why the ones who speak truth are silenced, cancelled, or bought. The market doesn't want rebels. It wants consumers with just enough freedom to feel special, but never enough to be dangerous. So ask yourself, what do you really own? Your house? Your job? Your schedule? Or have you simply been upgraded to a more comfortable cage? Drop a comment if you've ever chased success and felt emptier the higher you climbed. That feeling is the system cracking. Part 3. The power they fear is the one you forgot. Power is not dominance. Not titles, muscles, or noise. It's something quieter. Something primal. The unwavering ability to stand alone in truth, even when the world burns around you. You had it once. In your childhood defiance. In your teenage rage. In those moments you refused to shrink. But they called it arrogance. Disobedience. They beat it out of you with shame and isolation, until you forgot it was your birthright. Nietzsche called this inner force the will to power. Not the will to rule others, but the will to become yourself at all costs. To transcend your programming. To impose your meaning on a meaningless world. Not through violence, but through presence. And yet you were taught the opposite. To outsource your power to leaders. To idols. To systems. You were told to wait for permission, from a boss, a parent, a god, a trend. As if your own instinct was not sacred. That's the deepest form of control. Not punishment for rebellion, but praise for obedience. Because it convinces you that your silence is wisdom. That your hesitation is virtue. That your paralysis is peace. But underneath it all, the fire remains. The unspoken part of you that remembers. That aches. That whispers, I am not what I've become. You don't need to be aggressive. You need to be awake. Power is not the absence of fear. It's the refusal to kneel in its presence. And once you remember that, nothing they built can hold you. Comment below if you've ever felt your old fire flicker, even for a moment. It means you're still alive. Part 4. Obedience, the most profitable commodity on earth. Obedience is not a virtue. It is a currency. Traded, bought, refined, until it becomes instinct. Until you bow without noticing. Until you serve without questioning. Until they don't need to control you, because you control yourself in their name. From your first day in school, they didn't teach you to think, they taught you to wait. Wait to be told. Wait to be graded. Wait to be chosen. The reward? Approval. The punishment? Isolation. A subtle but ruthless equation: obey and belong, question and suffer. They created a feedback loop. One where the obedient thrive, not because they're right, but because they're safe. Because they can be predicted, scaled, managed. And that's what modern systems worship: efficiency over humanity. Compliance over curiosity. Nietzsche saw how this moral machine operates. How society turns instinct into sin, and turns fear into morality. You were taught to repress your desires. To demonize your ambition. To call your rage immaturity. Because if you acted on them, you might disrupt something, and that is the true heresy. So what did you do? You folded. You adapted. You became likable. And the parts of you that couldn't fit? You buried them. And called it growth. But what you lost in that exchange was yourself. You stopped being dangerous. Not to others, but to the system. And that was exactly the point. Obedience is the lubricant of control. It keeps the gears turning, the profits rising, the silence intact. And the ones who challenge it? They're exiled, mocked, medicated. Because their refusal reveals the lie everyone else is trying to ignore. So look around. How many of your choices are truly yours? How many thoughts are just echoes? How much of your life is a reaction, not an expression? Comment if you've ever caught yourself playing a role so long you forgot it was a mask. That's not failure. That's the first step back. Part 5. The collapse is the invitation. Something is breaking. Inside you. In the world. In everything we were told to trust. And the collapse, though terrifying, is sacred. Because only in collapse do we finally see when the job loses meaning, when the money doesn't numb, when the roles no longer fit, we're left naked. No labels, no illusions, just the raw, trembling truth of who we are, without the script. Nietzsche warned that the greatest danger is not chaos, but comfort. Because comfort preserves the lie. But pain, real, existential pain, is a portal. It cracks the shell. It forces confrontation. It asks the question we've avoided our whole lives. If I am not this, then what am I? This is where transformation begins. Not in success. Not in applause. But in rupture. In dissent. In the holy unraveling of the false self. You weren't meant to be consistent. You were meant to evolve. But evolution requires death, the death of the obedient version of you. The agreeable, productive, polite identity that made you manageable. Let it die. Let the collapse burn through the layers. Let it humiliate your ego. Let it dismantle your certainty. Because what emerges on the other side is not a new persona, but a man who no longer needs one. You will be alone. You will be misunderstood. But you will be real. And in a world addicted to performance, authenticity is rebellion. Comment if you're going through the collapse. If life is shaking everything loose, that's not punishment. That's your invitation. Part 6. Reclaim the fire they buried. You were never weak. You were trained to believe you were. And that belief was the most effective form of control ever created. Not bars. Not chains. Just doubt. Just silence. But deep beneath the years of obedience. Beneath the masks, the compromises, the conditioned smiles. Your original flame still burns. It's not gone. It's waiting. For your permission. Not the permission to be angry, but to be whole. To be wild again. To be unowned, unbranded, untamed. Power is not something you gain. It's something you stop giving away. It was always yours, in your instinct, your rage, your longing. In your refusal to become a product. In your refusal to die while still breathing. Wealth won't save you. The system won't save you. Success won't save you. But truth will. Not the truth they sell you, but the truth that lives in your body. In the ache. In the shame. In the moments you almost remembered who you were. So this is your ritual. Bury the obedience. Burn the costume. Reclaim the fire. And if you ever forget again, come back to this video. Because you don't need more motivation. You need the truth, brutal, ancient, and yours. Subscribe if you're done being tamed. Like this video if you're done playing small. Share it with someone who's starting to remember. And whatever you do next, do it with your fire lit.